deal. So this is crowdfunding training for everybody who is looking to start a crowdfunding project and raise money for that project on behalf of their project and, of course, UNLV as well. Excuse me. I'm dealing with one of those lovely summer colds right now, so I apologize in advance for any coughing. Um, so why crowdfunding? Well, there's a lot of good reasons to do this in terms of donor acquisition, because it works well by giving donors choice and impact awareness. When you're doing a crowdfunding project, you're talking very specifically about the fund it's supporting, and that's exactly the type of thing that donors, modern donors especially, are looking for more and more. Digital makes it easier to fundraise, whether we're talking about a walk or a run, or a scholarship, or funding a service trip, or a piece of lab equipment. We just have a lot more ways to be able to connect with our networks and our peers to be able to fundraise. Digital gives us that ability, and there is support, of course, from the Central Annual Giving Office. We have the Rebel Raiser platform. That is something that, the cost of which is covered by UNLV Annual Giving, and is a wonderful resource for anyone looking to raise money on the Rebel Raiser platform. So here's a couple of quick, I think, very important distinctions to make. One, we're talking about what is crowdfunding, and sometimes it's helpful to really think about what crowdfunding is not. So what you see here in the image is, of course, our awesome Rebels Give, the first year, raising tons of money from lots of very generous donors. The Giving Day was an institution-wide event. There were substantial resources from annual giving, not just the platform, but a ton of resources and effort put toward creating content, engaging partners around campus, building communication plans, bringing everyone together for this big event, real-life events at student centers, off campus for alumni, an enormous all-hands-on-deck effort. And it created an incredible buzz machine. Pretty much anybody online who was associated with UNLV saw something about the Giving Day. Whether they took action on it or not, it's a different story. But, it was a marketing machine, and it worked really well to drive people to the effort. Crowdfunding couldn't be more different. It's very specific. It's something that there is some support from annual giving, but this is really all about individual projects and funds. Instead of trying to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in one day, that's okay. Instead of trying to raise, you can always just mute your line too if you want. And of course, if you need to jump in,
drop that.
And if you want to jump in at any point, you can always just hit unmute too. So, it's much more niche focused on a certain fund. Instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars for a Giving Day being raised, we're usually trying to raise somewhere between maybe $2,000 and $20,000 or $25,000 for a crowdfunding project. There's annual giving support for crowdfunding because, again, the platform's there. And for a few of the, really wide-reaching opportunities, if they're strategically planned, there might also be an email or something like that, maybe a social media post. But it's nothing like the Giving Day in terms of that giant marketing and buzz machine. With crowdfunding, it's all about the project leaders, the core team. They're everything. Their email contacts, their social media contacts, their offline contacts are what are going to drive crowdfunding. And that's why we like to start with identifying a core team. That's a very important piece of this. Your core team for a crowdfunding project includes at least 3 people who will be the energy, the face, the cheerleaders for the campaign, the people who will really drive it. They'll be on the website. They'll be responsible for producing things like video. Maybe these are also the same 3 people who will be sharing the project on email, on text, on social media, the same 3 people who have big networks, who know other people who can amplify a crowdfunding project, who they can email and share with on social media, and really expand that network for the viral spread of a project like this that helps us raise some of the funding. So, number one, when we launch a crowdfunding project, there has to be a group of people who are the core team. It can be one individual person. I know we've had a lot of success with, I think, in the paleontology space, for example, and Dr. Rowland, I think it is, who had a mammoth excavation site, and he really kind of led that through his network. That's possible. A compelling cause and one really strong project leader can work, but the more the merrier. That leads us into the goal-setting piece on what's really realistic. And again, this is one of those things that I think is really important to look at through a crowdfunding lens. And the first place to start is with email, because social media helps a lot, and there's different ways in which social media can work. But email is often what is the difference maker, what makes or break a crowdfunding project. It is more than 10 times as effective as social media driving crowdfunding. Gifts and personal emails are everything. Even the personal emails are 4 times more, so it exponentially increases how powerful it is when you're sending to your contacts. So we really want to start by thinking about how many people we have in an address book. From Scale Funder, I believe this was data, we found that every email contact you have is worth about $4 or $5 during a crowdfunding campaign. Obviously, that's an average number, not something where we expect everybody to give $4 or $5. But per average, for everyone you have, they're going to be worth about $4 or $5. So if you have a project and you want to raise $4,500, you need project leaders who have at least 1,000 people in their email address books. Could be 5 people with 200, could be 1 with 1,000. But to get to that 4,500 number, typically we need to have that many emails, and then we need to be willing to email those people, comfortable emailing those people who are in our contact books. Now, there are other direct messaging, processes and tactics that look a lot like email. For example, sending a DM on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram. That can work too. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to kind of create those personal approach engagements. Again, social media is great in terms of overall marketing and advertising and reminding your friends that you're doing this, but fundraising is about asking for money. And while the crowdfunding platform and technology helps us do that in new ways, it's a great new mechanism. We still need, for lack of a better word, sort of these volunteer gift officers who are going and asking their friends for small gifts to make these campaigns work. Could be through direct messages, could be through text messages, could even be in person or over the phone. If they're having a conversation with someone, directing them to their crowdfunding page. But one way or another, we need those fundraisers to be doing this work. We can also think about matches and challenges in the crowdfunding space. Donors are 20% more likely to make a gift when a match is in play. That's great news. If we can get any size match for a crowdfunding project, it can work to really help, number one, plant that seed and get the project off the ground so that people can see activity on a project page, which we'll talk about in just a second. But more than anything else, it just inspires people to make a gift when someone else is going to double their gift through a match or a challenge. Again, not to sound like such a broken record, but it's not the giving day. We don't want to aim too high. Just because someone has $25,000 to give to a particular project or fund doesn't mean that we then have a $50,000 crowdfunding project. What we don't want to do, of course, is have $25,000 and then only raise $2,000 on top of that. There's other ways we can think about structuring a match or a challenge, but being realistic is very important in crowdfunding because of everything we've been discussing about how important it is to have the right number of emails, how it's not as big of a marketing push centrally. We need to stay conservative and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward when we're setting these goals. Sometimes instead of a match or a challenge, a seed gift is a way to go. I think this worked really well for the Gaming Institute project that we just wrapped up this spring. It beat its goal, and a big part of the reason why it beat its goal is because of a seed gift that was made to launch the campaign. So that when we put that campaign out to the public, I think 2/3 of the goal had already been met. And again, that's a pretty common tactic in crowdfunding because donors really like to get behind winning campaigns. It doesn't have to be 50%. It's great if it is. If you've got a $10,000 goal and you've got $5,000 in seed gifts, it doesn't have to be one gift. You could come from family and friends, and you're able to post that to the site before you even launch it to a wider network of people. That's great because donors love to get behind winning campaigns. This is true in the nonprofit space. It's especially true in the startup crowdfunding space where people really want to get behind a winner. But again, that does carry over into the nonprofit sense as well. So when we get some of those big gifts on the front end, a match or a challenge is one way we can definitely do it. But think about the seed gift too, to be able to have, again, 25, 30, 40, 50% of that goal made when we expand the campaign and start, approaching a wider group of friends and the public about it.
So Justin, quick question. I want to say we don't start our Rebel Raisers until there's 30% seed funding, correct?
I honestly don't know what the number is. I know that plenty have been posted without 30%.
Oh, okay.
Like the one we just launched.
Well,
and I'm pretty sure it's not going to meet its goal.
Interesting.
doesn't have very much going for it already.
Look back on my documentation, but we can do that. I can do that later. Yeah, I want to say for us it's 30%, but that's a really good point. So with people who may not have that 30% or whatever that magic number is to seed, do you find in your experience that they just don't do as well, or?
Typically, yeah. I mean, typically, if you're launching a campaign that has 0 to almost no money in it, maybe 2% of the goal, that's a problem because for a couple of reasons. One, again, it's a little less inspiring when you're nowhere near the goal, and a small gift isn't going to move the needle much. Number two, it also means that they probably don't have much of a network they can pull on. The seed gifts, again, they can be one big gift, but they don't have to be. It could be a case where, again, let's say you got a $5,000 goal, and you're able to raise $1,000 from your friends and family, and post that, and before you go live with it, maybe you even have the site posted, but then your friends and family gives right away. That makes all the difference in the world, and it suggests that we have some good project leaders who are willing to go out there and make things happen. And again, it plays on that psychology. Now, there are plenty of examples where we just know we have a good project, or strategically it's something that's important, a story to tell that people know they can give back to this. And it's not the end of the world if we don't make the goal. So there's a lot of reasons why we would break that 30% rule. But that is a good standard to have in place, where before going public with a campaign, or excuse me, a project, we have 30% of the goal met.
Okay. So I had a little conflicting information. I have 20% in one area and 30% in another, but you're suggesting that typically no less than 30% is a good place to start.
Yeah. I think that 30% number is good. I think 20% isn't bad either. Showing progress is the key, and both 20 and 30% do that. So that's an internal discussion we can have after this if we really want to set a standard. But both of those numbers, and obviously 30% stronger, but both of those numbers I think would be acceptable.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
You bet. So again, another thing that falls on the project leaders in most cases is video. And it does not have to be that top shelf video. Now, there are many points in time throughout the year where we do want better videos. The main video on the Giving Day page. Videos that we're using to engage major gift donors. Those should be quality videos, not something that looks like they're just thrown together on a laptop real quick and an iPhone. It's different with crowdfunding. With crowdfunding, actually, the lower quality, good message, still very authentic, genuine messaging, featuring the people who are being helped by the project, that works especially well. But a lot of times, the more authentic videos tend to perform a little better. If you look at this data from ThankView, and we look at webcam, so ThankView, I think we may have talked about this, but if you're not familiar with ThankView, it's a platform that allows for very easy video fundraising, and usually it attaches to a phone program, for example, where a caller makes a pledge, and the student then hangs up and quick records a video, and then sends that 15 or 30-second video to the pledge donor saying, "Hey, I'm a student you just talked with. Thank you so much for your support. Click here to fulfill your pledge." So that's one way. Yeah.
We just signed a contract with ThankView to roll out to our division. That's on my future to-do list, to integrate it to our division. So if you have any experience with that, I would love to have another conversation with you about that.
Absolutely will do. Yeah, there's a lot of ways of using it beyond what we just suggested, so we can definitely talk about that. And yeah, of course. And ThankView, what they did is they did this little study to see, okay, that webcam video where it's really rough around the edges and students just real quick record a message, how does that perform versus a pre-produced video that's uploaded to the site that we share with pledge donors or whoever we might be sharing it with? Both perform really well. You can see the watch to completion rate. For online video, a 47% watch to completion rate is fantastic. If we could get that for all of our online videos, we'd be able to raise hundreds of millions of dollars a year online through just a video strategy alone. Really, it's that dramatic. But what's crazy is that authentic webcam video is actually at 61% watch to completion rate, otherworldly. So they both did well, but the webcam one did a little bit better. And then when we look at the actual call to action, where people are, clicking on that Give Now button, the webcam once again outperformed the upload. Again, great call to action click rates. 10% click rate is strong, 15% is very strong. And the webcam, the more authentic video, actually did a little better than the well-produced video. Point is, for these crowdfunding projects, you don't have to partner with a cinematic masterpiece of a company to produce the videos. In some cases, it's important and it helps, but in most cases, just grabbing anything is important. We're going to do a quick video tutorial at the end of this for everybody who's watching it, for everyone who watches this recording, because I think it's important to really be comfortable and familiar with how to produce this type of video. But before we get there, again, we just want to really emphasize that video is a must for crowdfunding. Crowdfunding projects that have video vastly outperform those crowdfunding projects that don't have video. So, whether you're doing it with a production house or whether you're just doing it on your own, just do it. Make sure we have video for crowdfunding projects. Keep it short. Under 2 minutes is the goal for most online videos, and we really want to explain the purpose of the crowdfunding project. Why are we crowdfunding? How will the gifts be used? And always reminding people to make a gift really throughout any content, whether it's in the copy for the site or the videos posted on the site. Speaking of the copy on the site, we can, within the project and the platform, talk about the exact same things, re-emphasize who we are, why we're raising money, and what about our fundraising request is unique. Also within the site, as it is right now with the Scale Funder platform, we can very easily build these perk levels, giving levels. And in some cases, they offer an actual gift, something very small. You can't offer something that is anywhere close to the value of a gift. So like a t-shirt for $15, can't do that because the t-shirt might actually cost more than $15 and we get into tax trouble in a real hurry. But a photo from a dig site for $15, for example, or a lab photo, something like that, something where the cost is extremely low, we can do something like that. Or you can use these, and this is an even better idea, to just talk about what the gifts provide. Again, we talked on the very first slide about impact of giving and how important communicating that is for donors. That's what the projects can do for us here. You can see, very first one, buy supplies such as brushes, trowels, and dental picks. All the way down to some of the more expensive pieces. Sometimes, you'll be trying to fund a trip for students to take, and the project cost is, $5,000. And you'll have all these different levels starting at maybe 10 or 15 bucks. And then, the very top level is actually fund the whole trip for $5,000, which is a good option to offer because a lot of times that's how we find new major gift donors is by featuring, a high level, cover the whole cost of the project or a very significant piece of the project for some of these programs. Again, the giving levels piece, it really helps people understand the impact of giving, and it puts a little bit more meaning behind even some of the smaller gifts. When we talk about providing 5 meals, 20 meals, 100 meals, all the way up to some of those large gift levels for people who have the capacity to do that, both as a way to quickly meet your goal and also as a way to find some more capable donors who can be really major supporters of the institution over the years. We also want to post updates. Updates can be posted directly on the site. Any project leader can do this. And first and foremost, we just want to keep our donors apprised of progress. So, updates when they're posted, we can email them to everyone who's made a gift, and to anyone who visits the site, they can see again the progress of the campaign. What are we marching towards? What are we going to make happen? Think about this on the front end. I mean, sometimes an update happens because we got a surprise gift or something changed about the project or what have you. But it's also something we should be thinking about from a communication planning standpoint before we even launch the campaign. Think about a couple of points throughout the project where you'd want to post an update. Think about, withholding maybe a unique angle or something interesting once we reach a certain dollar threshold that we can post and reveal once we hit that milestone. Again, updates are another great excuse to post more video. Here especially is where a cell phone video can really work wonders for us. Just a 35 or 40 second update from the lab, from the classroom, from the field to help people understand the progress and what we're working towards. And then always thanking donors. This is, a lot of times you might not necessarily get new donors, but donors who have given $25 or $50 and they see that, oh wow, we're at $8,900 on our way to $10,000 goal. I'm going to give another $100 because I want to make sure that we reach that goal. So it's a really good way to get second gifts from the people who've already supported the campaign as well.
Justin, I know that obviously you want to communicate and that should be in your master plan, but is there a minimum amount of posting, and to that same thought process, a maximum, so that you're not over communicating, or is there such a thing?
If you have new information, if there's something new and interesting, there's definitely no maximum. I think within reason. I mean, if you had someone whose full-time job was communicating the project, then you could definitely overdo it. But within reason and with what's feasible for project leaders, I would say no cap really. Nor is it really a minimum, because I wouldn't want to force people to be posting things that are irrelevant. I shouldn't say that. You want to probably post at least 2 updates throughout the course of the project. If we're looking at a typical 30-day project, you launch it, and then 15 days in, even if it's just a progress update, here's where we're at, here's what we're seeing, here's what we need, and then another one towards the completion of the project. Could be a thank you. Maybe you've met your goal and you're simply thanking the donors and supporters and welcoming any additional gifts, or you're really trying to close it out. So I would say for the updates, you want to plan for doing at least 2 of them. But then beyond that, as long as you have something interesting to share, go for it. And again, so if we have a 30-day campaign, we probably don't want 30 updates, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone do more than 5 or 6, and it's usually because they have good things to talk about.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
You betcha. Again, communication plan, and everything starts and ends with email because that's what we know drives crowdfunding success. When you, and this is one of the ways we can get that seed gift up too. Now, there's a couple ways of doing it. Sometimes we can go, sometimes when we launch a project, the project leaders know that, hey, my grandma really loves this, and she, promised $1,500 for this. So we just got her check. Can we put that in the project and have $1,500 on our way to a $5,000 goal? That's one way of doing it. Or, when you launch a project, it can go live on the site. So it's up on Rebel Raiser, not a dollar raised yet. And then that individual really works their close network, friends, family, fellow alumni, people in the field to say, we're kind of having a quiet phase right now. We really want to try to get to $3,000 raised on our way to $10,000 by June 17th. Can you make a gift today to help us get there before we go public? So you kind of have this, slightly quiet phase, trying to engage friends and family before you actually really open up the project. So on let's say a 4 email strategy that we start with. And again, we could end up doing more, but that first email is what we just discussed, really trying to build the base and put something in the bucket, in the tip jar. And that's one of those analogies that I've often heard about crowdfunding is a tip jar. And I think there's been a study about this actually. A tip jar performs better on a countertop when it's got money already in the tip jar. And I don't know if that's actually true or if it's just an anecdote, but it's like the street musician who throws out a guitar case and then takes out, $7 and some change and tosses it in there just to give people the idea. It's kind of what we're after here. A little more sophisticated. There's a little bit more psychology behind it on the crowdfunding side of things. But that's what we want with that first email. Small group, close connections, people who will give just about no matter what and give us that base of support. Then we have that everybody contact. And this could, again, in some cases, actually be elevated by annual giving. If it's a top strategic priority for the university, like what we just did this past spring with the R1 designation and research associated projects in gaming and paleontology and STEM, that could be something where we're also working with annual giving. But no matter what, this is where you open it to everybody. Everybody whose email address you have. If you're a project leader, you're sending them an email saying, please give to this campaign because it matters a lot to me. Then we've got those final 2 emails where they could also be updates on the site. So we send out an email to everybody we know, plus posting an update email that goes to donors who have given through the site that are a combination of, hey, still time to give, still trying to reach our goal. Here's where we're at. Here's what we need. Here's why. And hopefully it becomes a thank you email at some point too. And you could even do, this could be a 5th email or it could be that 4th email, but you really want to express urgency if you haven't reached the goal yet once we're approaching that final bell. If it's a day 27 of a 30-day campaign and we're almost to the finish line, but not quite there yet. Now, I've spent a lot of time talking about how ineffective social media is, and I don't mean to do that. It's a great supplement, just like with anything. Social media does not drive a lot of conversions in terms of gifts, but it's during a giving day, for example, a big part of the reason why the giving day is so successful. Because even though some people do click on Facebook links and make a gift, but even if they're not necessarily clicking on a Facebook link and making a gift during a giving day, they are seeing those posts on Facebook and they're being reminded of the emails they have in their inbox, and then maybe they're returning to an email in their inbox and making a gift. That type of thing happens all the time, sort of the soft conversions that we see tracked in various ways. Same is true on a much more limited scale, much more personalized scale with crowdfunding, where if we're active on Facebook, active on Twitter and LinkedIn, and etc., people will see that and, they will take action then on the emails you send, or maybe go back to the link that they've been saving. So use video whenever possible. That's true across all social media networks, Facebook especially. Consider a Facebook Live. Do a Facebook Live with your friends. Facebook Lives, especially when they come from a personal profile, are seen by most of your network. If they're on at that point in time, Facebook's going to show them. So Facebook Lives are a great way to get free, without any ads, exposure for your cause, for your project. Twitter, again, not a lot of conversions, but still very worthwhile, especially when video is in play. Engagement on tweets with video is 10 times higher than tweets that don't have video. So very important that when we produce those videos to also be sharing them on Facebook. Definitely use Instagram. Instagram is one of the highest converting social media platforms, actually. So, put a link in your bio, post a few photos from time to time talking about your project and why it's important, and then in your description for your post, say, go to the link in my bio to make a gift, because it's, you can't really click on a photo to make a gift, of course. So you want to make sure that we're informing our followers on Instagram that you have that link posted in your bio. So go to your bio, edit your bio, add a link to the crowdfunding project if you're a project leader or a supporter of the project, and then post to Instagram throughout the life of the project and ask people to go and make a gift. It works pretty well. Visual is great. Video is best. Anything with imagery helps capture attention. So we want to make sure we're doing that across social media. We can, of course, tag people on every single major social media network: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. We can tag people and direct them straight to that post. And whenever we're posting, whether it's on social media, in email, in a text message, always include the link to the crowdfunding project. We want to give people one-click access to get to that project and make a gift. If we don't include the link, there's no way they're going to find it on their own. Maybe they'll return to an email or something like that, but always critical that we make sure that we have the link in everything that we're posting. And last but not least, don't forget about traditional outreach. For that personal group, for example, for that small group that you're going to send that first email to, you can send them a handwritten letter right around the same time you're sending that email. You can say in the letter, hey, this is really important to me. You're going to receive an email from me soon. Please click on that link, make a gift when you receive that email. Great way to guarantee that we have some of that seed money in the bank before we launch our campaign. And again, in some cases, the projects that we're doing might have a much wider appeal that meet some of the very, top level priorities for UNLV. If that's the case, let annual giving know, let marketing know. There might even be a news opportunity where we can talk about our project in the local news, depending on what it is. I know there have been some things that have been timely, that have matched up with current events, and have been very successful fundraising opportunities for UNLV. So if what you have is important to a mass audience and matches up with current events, think about a wider push in the more traditional media. Crowdfunding projects, building them. For anybody who wants to launch a project, anyone can apply. Go to Rebel Raiser, hit the apply button, fill out the forms, fill out the necessary information. The actual platform itself is the easiest part. It's just like setting up a Facebook page, essentially. The key is that A, a project leader is willing to engage their network and their connections to raise money, and B, that you have the content, that you have video, that you have a written description, that you thought about different levels that you can add to the platform. Because again, crowdfunding is all about engaging your crowd. The platform, it's really nice to have a very donor-friendly platform in place. That's necessary as well. And again, that's something that the annual giving team at UNLV provides. There's an approval process, of course. Just because someone sets up or submits an application doesn't necessarily mean their project will be accepted. So just something to keep in mind for anybody who's watching this and thinking about doing a project. Although most of them, again, if they're attached to a fund and have a good fundraising purpose, and especially if you have some good project leaders who are willing to work to raise money, in a lot of cases, the projects are going to be accepted. Any questions on that before we go into the video production tutorial?
Nope, not on my end. Do you have any questions, Jess, about this?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Cool. All right.
Good. Yeah.
For a lot of people, we all have smartphones. We know how to use them, and we're pretty good video producers as it is. That's one of the cool things about technology and the way it's advanced. But for a lot of other folks, it helps to have at least a few pointers on how to produce something that really is watchable, looks good, and helps deliver a message. And again, the great news about video production is we don't have to have that top-end equipment anymore. Most of us have in our pockets everything we need to produce effective video for a crowdfunding project. Here are a few tips and a few pointers and a few extra accessories that can help us do an even little better job. So whenever possible, tripods are great. Even with an iPhone, although I have to say, iPhone technology has come a long way in terms of building stabilization technology into the camera. But still, having a tripod guarantees a firm, steady shot. You can set things up where you can do much more sophisticated selfie videos instead of a person seeing their arm extended from their body and seeing the phone in their sunglasses reflected back. You can set this up a few feet away from you, check out the scene, and do a slightly more sophisticated shot. So tripods are super cheap. I mean, something you can attach to an iPhone, 30, 40, 50 bucks at the most. Far more important than the tripod actually is audio and a microphone. Because if you can't hear what's being said in a video, there really is no reason to have that video. There's plenty of studies that show poor visual quality. So the actual video itself, the images, they can be a little on the grainy side, not perfectly shot. Viewers will forgive that, but they will not forgive poor audio. If someone can't hear what's going on and if there's not captioning to help support that, then there's no way. So, light winds can cause deafening noise, crowded conference rooms. It can be an audio nightmare. All of it can be alleviated by a microphone, and there are so many microphones that now plug directly into an iPhone that are very affordable. Again, for $50, you can have really some professional audio equipment that you can plug into any mobile phone, any smartphone, and make sure that you get past that hurdle of having poor quality audio. Next up, framing, making sure that we have the right amount of space around an individual or a subject, and we have them positioned appropriately in the frame. And the rule of thirds. Think about dividing your screen up into exactly that, thirds, both vertically like this, where we have vertical lines separating it into thirds, and then also horizontally. So you can also think of maybe two lines cutting across, this image horizontally. So we have an upper third, a middle third, and a lower third. And then what we want to do for interviews, for example, is position the interviewee on one of those access points where the horizontal and the vertical lines come together. And what we're trying to do here is when they're looking off to the side in an interview like this, what we're trying to do is make it look natural. Create a frame that matches the way the human eye would perceive something like this. They're looking forward. In this case, it's a story about physics, and there's a physics equation on the chalkboard behind this individual, so that makes sense. We're using that space well. It's not just empty space. It could be anything. It could be a basketball court. It could be, the main mall on campus. It could be a microscope. It could be any number of things could fill that space. Sometimes it could just be, like I said, a pretty background. But the key is you want the space in front of the person, because the person is looking in this direction. We're, for the most part, forward-thinking people, and when someone's looking in a direction, we're curious about what's in that direction. This makes sense. If you would shift him to the right, and if you would put him on that other access point, so there was very little room in front of him and a lot of space behind him, it would be extremely distracting, because we'd be constantly asking ourselves, what is he looking at? Where is he going? It would be a subconscious thing where the user would lose interest in the frame, in the video. And here again, we've got him on the upper level. There's not a ton of space above his head. You probably want just a tiny little bit of space. We're focused on his face, his eyes, his mouth, his nose. That's what's doing the business here. That's what's doing the work. He's talking. We've got a decent amount of room underneath him. About 2/3 of the frame is underneath him, about 1/3 above his eyes. Exactly what we want there. There are tools built into most phones to make this easy for us if we're just getting started in video production. Just go into the settings, snap on the grid. This is on an iPhone. I think there's something very similar on other devices as well. And again, that helps us get those rule of thirds built in. Lighting, also very important so that we can see what's happening in front of us. It's fairly simple if you keep a few rules in mind. Whatever the brightest source of light may be, could be a light, a lamp, could be the sun. Whatever it is, make sure that that bright source of light is somewhere in front of them. It doesn't have to be directly in front of the person who's being interviewed, but it does have to be somewhere in front of their face so that they're illuminating their face so that we can see what's taking place. And that's true, of course, of anything, whether we're recording a person, an animal, an object. If we want to see that object, that subject of the interview, then we have to have a bright source of light in front of them so that they don't turn into a shadow. Again, it's like the witness protection program. If you are trying to conceal someone's identity, put them in a dark room in front of a bright window and balance the light on, the background outside. And then you just have a nice dark silhouette of a person and you won't be able to see them. But very, 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 very few cases for crowdfunding will be using that technique. And that's why we want to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to keep that source of light in front of the person. Moving lamps, we can reflect light with poster boards. It's a little bit more sophisticated. But really, if it's dark, if the source of light isn't working, just move the interview subject so we can be sure that we see them. This is, again, kind of a combination of both concepts, the lighting and the rule of thirds. Here we're a lot closer to this woman than we were to the previous subject, but the same thing's true. About 2/3 of the frame is in front of her where she's looking, with only about 1/3 behind her. Her eyes are on the upper third level with about 1/3 of the space above her eyes and about 2/3 of the space beneath her eyes, because that's our focal point. Lighting, again, it's a sunny day, it's a bright day, she's outside. We don't have her staring directly at the sun, that would be cruel, but we do have the sun generally in front of her, so it's lighting her up as opposed to making her look too dark so that we can't see her. Footage, this is, again, sort of another level up, not necessarily absolutely needed for most projects, but if you have a little bit of editing sophistication, it's good to get some B-roll. And some thoughts on how to do that. If you're going to take some footage and you're going to edit it into a film or into a piece, you want to get as much as you can out of every landscape, every scene you have in front of you. So you start with a wide shot. That means the camera is zoomed all the way out. It's not zoomed in on anything. It's just taking in everything you have in front of you. And if it's a dynamic enough scene, there's not enough going on, you can then zoom in partially and focus on maybe a more precise area of that scene. And then you can keep zooming in and you can keep getting all of these different pieces of video from that very same wide shot so that you have a lot of different images that can help move the story along, even though it is from one sort of wide image to begin with. The trick is this. What you want to do is you want to keep different images flashing up on the screen every few seconds to keep the viewer engaged. If you just have this one wide shot up and you're talking for 10 seconds, people will start to get bored with it unless it really is something incredible or if it's actually moving itself and something's going on there. But in most cases, they lose interest if it's just one shot. So you get that shot up there, and then you have those medium and those tight shots. So you're saying something along the lines of, in downtown Minneapolis on a summer evening, it's hard to beat the view from Target Field. There's the gorgeous skyline lighting up the night sky, but the really impressive part about Target Field is the giant scoreboard. That type of narration, if it was just one image, wouldn't move quite as well, but if you have multiple images, it can move quite a bit more quickly, keep the viewer more engaged, and you can get that by having the wide, medium, tight approach to getting footage. Once again, always aim for shorter for tighter. We want to keep most of our videos to under 2 minutes. If we can keep them under 60 minutes, to 2 minutes, keep them under 60 seconds, that's great. You think about Instagram, you can't post a video to Instagram that's more than 60 seconds. At least not without the new branding platforms. But for most of us, for most users, 60 seconds is the goal there on Instagram. Facebook ads, some of the experts will tell you that 15 seconds is the goal. You want to keep it as short as possible. So brevity is the way to go. Whenever we're thinking about video, it's very, very, very easy to ramble on and have a 5 or 10 minute video. We want to avoid that urge. We want to keep it short and sweet. Talk about the project, talk about what we're doing, what we're raising money for, where people can give, and then that's it. There's your video. And there's the training. Questions or comments?
No, that was pretty solid information. Do you have any questions?
No.
All right.
So again, just to wrap it up, it's very important. It's one of the most important things in crowdfunding that whoever wants to launch a project, they should be the project leader. They need to understand that the success of the project is up to them. In some cases, they'll get lucky. They'll strike lightning. Something will be happening in current events. It'll just be a popular project. All of those things can lead to sort of accidental viral success, but for 99% of the people who start a crowdfunding project, if they're willing to engage their networks and their communities to raise money via email, via social media, and personal connection, they'll be successful. If we don't have the project leaders who are willing to really carry the torch for a project, then the project won't be successful. And that is really the most important piece to remember when it comes to crowdfunding.